You ready, Mike? Good evening. We'd like to welcome everybody out to our Tuesday, January 11th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. Sorry about that. I'd like to note that all the Planning Commission members are here. At this time, do we have any public comment from the public? With none, we'll move on. And we will go to our presentation and reports. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. I'll try to cover briefly a few things I discussed in the work session. If I forget something, please inquire or let me know. The Raising Cane's open today. We hear very, very popularly. Maybe that's the right word. I have two small subdivisions forthcoming to the Planning Commission, one at the Joanne's parcel and one at the Shopko site. The freeway project is completed for the carpool lane from Riverdale Road area of Riverdale all the way up to obviously going into Layton, so that's good. The Falcon Hill project area, as far as UDOT is concerned, for 5600 South and the gate relocation is advancing. If you kind of go up to the Northrop Grumman area of Falcon Hill and where the gate is, you'll see that going on. And then I did note that the train depot station there, our old Army train depot station in Sunset, has been dismantled. And we anticipate, I didn't share this, but we anticipate, when I say we, cities in the area anticipates the track that goes into that area also equally being dismantled at a later date with guidance from Union Pacific. And then they'll start working on the interchange there at approximately 1800 North in Sunset for a new gate access and interchange point for the community at large. So it's going to be two big road projects forthcoming this year. So those areas are going to be pretty impactful. To be mindful of that as you ride the freeway. You just get done with one road freeway project and go and do two more. So that's the year ahead of us. But I think the 5600 South project, if I remember right, it's like a 2.5 year project, I think is what they anticipate for it to all be done with all the things going on with it. But it's pretty large. So take that into account. With that, I think that's everything that I have to report at this time, and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eggett. Consent items. We have consideration of meeting minutes from December 14th, 2021 work session and December 14th, 2021 regular meeting. Anyone have?
I'd like to make a motion we approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, our action items. First one is public hearing to receive and consider. Do I need to open the hearing first?
We need a motion to open the public hearing, yes.
But you still would read the public,
okay.
read the public hearing statement and then decide how you want to proceed.
Public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding proposed rezone request for properties located at approximately 1570 West Ritter Drive, Riverdale, Utah, as submitted by Riverdale City.
Would you like me to do a brief intro before starting the public hearing, or do you want to? Yes?
Yes, that would be great,
Okay.
please.
Riverdale City, as you noted, is the petitioner, and the reason for that is Riverdale City is the owning agency on the two parcels being requested for rezone at this time. Per direction of the council regarding this property, we were guided to request rezone as staff and representing the city on this property. The request, as you noted, is from A1 to R16 single family residential, A1 being agricultural. There's two properties. One is an existing partial piece of an old home property that has since been removed from or old home residence, not property, residence from the property that has been since removed, and the remaining parcel that has been left over from right-of-way development is part of this rezone. And then the other portion is a very small, narrow strip of land located along the Ritter Drive right-of-way that was developed that is also remaining. So the two properties together make up 0.27 acres of land along Ritter Drive. All public hearing notice requirements have been met and fulfilled for tonight's meeting, and the property was signed accordingly, and all notice requirements posted in the appropriate places. Prior to the public hearing, we did receive one phone inquiry. I did talk to an individual about the request and details associated with the request. The request is in order to consider some kind of a linkage with the property surrounding this property. This property is kind of its own little, I guess you'd say, spot of A1 with R16 around it on three sides, and then Ritter Drive obviously to the south. So that's the reasoning in designating it or requesting to designate it to an R16 zoning. Let's see, is there anything else I haven't covered? The general plan, the use for the area is set as residential low density in the land use master plan, and the proposed rezone request does comply with that land use designation. The language for the residential low density definition as well as the general plan area 3 has been provided in your packet. If you have any questions, let me know. And then all supporting documentation is found in the packet, including the rezone application responses sheet and all the documentation required as part of the application itself. And with that, I would defer to the Planning Commission to move forward with the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is now open. Do we have anything, any comments or? Okay,
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
I second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing closed.
Public hearing is now closed. So we have consideration to forward a recommendation to the City Council regarding proposed rezone request from agricultural A1 zoning to single-family residential R16 zoning for properties located at approximately 1570 West Ritter Drive, Riverdale, Utah 84405, as requested by Riverdale City.
I have nothing more to add than what I've already previously discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Aggett.
I make a motion that we forward recommendation to the City Council regarding proposed rezone to rezone the property located from agricultural A1 zoning to single-family residential R16 zoning for properties located approximately 1575 West Ritter Drive, as requested by Riverdale City.
Can I amend that? 1570 West?
Did I say 1575?
Yeah, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
1570.
I second it.
Will you poll the commissioners, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner DeMar,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Knight,
Aye.
Commissioner Wingfield,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Next, a review and discussion of proposed development agreement language as submitted by Bach Land and Development, LLC.
Do you want me to go ahead?
Sure, yes,
Okay.
please, Mr.
Okay,
Abbott.
I'll do an intro and then if you'll indulge me, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Ames, who is here just to give a kind of a brief intro of himself and his company to the commission. I offered him that opportunity if you would be allowing of him to do so after I'm done. So
Yes, sir.
okay, so Bach Holmes is the requesting group for this submittal. There early last year, the state legislature passed House Bill 409 that requires any development agreements with the city. When there's a land use alteration or it impacts the land use designations with that zone, they can, through a development agreement, we can work together to approve changes to existing code as long as the development agreement has gone through a typical land use, well, how would I word it? Land use wording change from the code, same as we would amend, obviously, a Title 10 code. And so in this case, we are following that process, and that's per Utah State Code 10-90-530. I know I didn't explain that as well as it's worded in the packet, but that's the reasoning for that. the development agreement does have a few requested alterations to the mixed use zone, and I'll cover those in just a second here. And for that purpose, we would need to schedule a public hearing to then consider those changes with this development agreement. Now, I will let the Planning Commission and the public know that this development agreement is still a work in progress. Obviously, were this to be set, I will provide you with updated copies of the development agreement as it is further amended and changed and ready to be the final version. But we think on both sides of the aisle on this agreement that it's in a pretty close spot to being at a position where the Planning Commission could at least look at it and then weigh in on it. That being said, Bach Holmes Development Group has been represented through this process by Mr. Sean Athey and Brandon Ames, and their legal counsel is Anthony Bake in this. The city attorney has provided some comments, and I will share those in just a second. And then there's no general plan guidance for this request. Going through the staff reports on this one, you'll see that Mr. Douglas, our Public Works Director, he says, I think they have addressed most of my concerns. I don't know how binding the conceptual plan is, but there's still some issues with it. We received a conceptual plan, which I did not provide to you because it's at a point that it really isn't relevant to what we're talking about. That's what he's referencing. But I think his concerns at that point we can further discuss, obviously, as a more conceptual plan discussion comes down the pipe. We're clearly not anywhere near that point, so I think we can address Mr. Douglas's comments. Then Mr. Brooks has a few comments, and maybe this is for Mr. Ames' knowledge as well as anything. His first note is under section 2.5, just making sure that we verify that what fully vested entitlements and rights mean relative to the subdivision site plan process. I believe this is language I proposed and maybe has been massaged just a little bit, so I'll further discuss it with Mr. Brooks as well, but it may be good for Mr. Brooks and Mr. Bake to talk about that. The next one is in 2.6. He's concerned about the developer having a perpetual right for development on this project of 25 years. 15 obviously could be something that we could work with, but he felt that it being an option to extend for additional 10 years be something that could be negotiated between the city and the development group. So if there's some way that could be worded that upon discussion of the two parties, then a 10-year extension could be warranted or something like that. Something that could be worded that way. His next comment is in Article 3. There's a statement here. It says the city hereby agrees to cooperate in good faith with developer, and then it's got clauses 1, 2, 3. He would like it to say with developer in order for the developer to 1, 2, 3, so that it's not necessarily the city that is then exercising participative activities in 1, 2, and 3. That's kind of what his thought process is there. Just to clarify that further and make sure that the developer is doing the work, but the city clearly will assist and partner in as much as we can in those processes. That's what he would hope it to say. And then his final comment is in Article 6. He says he just wants to make sure that the development group knows that the city council may still be concerned with the statement that says will not be used as residential development during the term of the development agreement. He says he's concerned that creating clauses that limit the city's rights or interests in the property are still of concern. So that may be one that would be best with the two attorneys talking, would be my recommendation on that one, and seeing if there's some, I think we understand Bach Holmes' interest in trying to protect its rights and the city not developing the park property and anything else with the investment that Bach Holmes is putting into the property. We understand that, but maybe there's a way that it doesn't necessarily need to be so restrictive in how that terminology is written. I don't know what that looks like, but that is his concern. So I'm putting that on the record for everybody to be aware. And with that, going now down to the actual development agreement itself, the biggest clause, which is so interesting that it's such a simple clause, but this is the biggest deviation from the mixed use zone, is right there in Article A, where it says a mixed use project consisting of a combination of single family residential dwellings, townhouses, and or condominiums, and here's the key deviation, and apartments and apartment building amenities. That's the one thing that the mixed use zone does not say. All those other things, the mixed use zone does already allow. So just be aware of that. And then there's another clause that kind of further defines what the density per acre under section 2.5, wherein it talks about the project will permit the residential ratio of density use on the property to be increased in a targeted format. The mixed use zone is kind of, it's mute. So this is further defining how that ratio is established for the 68 acres and kind of protecting, I guess you could say, the development rights so they could be more, they could mass more buildings in one area, but what that allows for is bigger open space areas that can then be used as amenities or other features on the site when you start to mass residential units to that level. So that's what they're seeking there. So those are the two deviations. Again, this isn't a point to have feedback. This is just kind of letting you know what is the reason that we're even talking about having a public hearing. And those two statements are probably the biggest reasons why in Article A and then again there in 2.5. So just know that under the recitals. Otherwise, let's see, is there anything else? Just want to make sure I'm hitting all of them. I mean, other things are terms of clarification, but they don't really do anything to the actual mixed use zone code language at that point. So I don't think anything else is really something that's land use. So I would be, I guess what I'm going to caution the planning commission on is the things that are outside of things that affect the land use ordinances. Clearly you can make comment and weigh in and ask questions, but you need to be careful about how much legislative oversight you see. You can make recommendations on any of this, clearly to the city council, just kind of the development agreement outside of those two clauses will really be between the council and the applicant group at that point. His guess is what I'm trying to say. That's kind of my guidance for you on that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ames because I've said plenty and you can hear from him now and let him do his presentation of his company and his group and leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan.
Can you state your name and your address for the record, please?
Sure. Brandon Ames, 270 North, 2250 East, Layton, Utah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give a brief introduction to Bach Holmes. In case you're not familiar, Dale, the name came from the last name Rindlisbacher. Dale Rindlisbacher was a music professor at the University of Utah. He had a number of children, which caused him to seek summer employment. So he built a home and sold it and realized he could make as much money on one house in the summer as he could his entire other 9 months of being a music professor. So he started having his children build homes with him. And he did this through the kind of late 70s, through the 80s. And by the time he was in the 90s, his children were older. And about 2004, which turned out not to be great timing, but 4 of the brothers purchased the business from Dale. So 4 brothers now run Bach Homes. They had to resort to building homes by themselves again in 2008, 9, 10, 11 by hand, and they kind of kept the company alive. And we're located in Draper, and they've done a good job. They've been very kind of progressive, and I've learned a lot. They've learned a lot about building multifamily homes, single-family homes, and townhomes. And we typically build a pretty good mix of that. We try to build about 100 or so single-family homes a year, maybe 200 townhomes, and try to do about 300 or 400 apartment units every year. So currently, Bach Homes owns about 3,000 apartment units. And there's only one that they've ever sold, and that was something that they all owned with other members of their family that they needed to sell. Otherwise, Bach's business model has always been to build something and keep it and rent it out or take care of it. As a matter of fact, right now we're doing a $7 million renovation on an apartment complex in Kearns. And can't raise the rates or anything. It's just something that they feel they're from here, they're from the area, and it's important to them that what they do looks good and is a good product. So that's kind of the background of Bach Homes. And with this property, we purchased a property. It came with a development agreement, and this summer, the gentleman who worked for Bach who purchased the property moved on, and I took over his position. And during that time, some information was lost, and that was that guess what? You can't right now build apartments. And that is how the entire pro forma has been drawn and written and planned for the property. It's a large enough parcel that we felt like it was important to appeal to all different market types. So we have single family homes planned, townhomes planned, and some apartments planned with amenities. And so that's what kind of brought us to the point where we are today of trying to amend the development agreement that would allow mixed use zoning, or allow apartments in the mixed use zoning. We put a lot of effort and a lot of work into this. We take a lot of pride in what we do, and we are involving landscape architects, hydraulic engineers, structural engineers. We've done a lot of work with the city pre-planning the road connection and what that will look like, and we're master planning the whole thing. And we feel like, yes, we can do 13 units per acre, but if we do 13 units of the same product for 897 products, that it's a tough absorption rate. And it's difficult to put that much money out there and hope that 897 people want to buy a similar product. Whereas when we can do some apartments, some townhomes, and some homes, it allows us to adjust a little bit with the market, and it allows us to provide, different housing, different price points for people who want to live in Riverdale. So that's our goal, and that's kind of a brief summary of Bach and the project.
Could I ask you, Mr. Ames, just to kind of maybe further, you and I know this because we've been working on it for so long, but could you give them a little bit of enlightenment and guidance on your efforts to do the bridge connectivity and all the time and investment that's gone into that? Because I know, but maybe from your perspective, you could explain it to the commission so they know.
Sure. Yeah, we started probably a year ago, actually, meeting with different bridge building companies in the valley. We've even one from Colorado, but we got bids from them and started going through the design process with a few of them until we felt comfortable with one company. And we've currently invested about $150,000 into just preliminary planning the bridge. That making sure that we're not disruptive to the mating season of local birds, making sure that we are not disruptive to the Weber River or any backflow that might occur from putting where we locate the piles. And we've also worked with the city greatly on making sure that the trail system that exists in the area is maintained, and that the trail can go under the bridge and not have to go up and over or stop for any traffic. So and I know that the company we've been working with has been meeting with the city regularly on that as well. So we're trying to do everything the best that we can to plan ahead and provide a good product. But we feel like being able to do some apartments in the area is a big part of that.
I have a question.
That's
for you.
everything we have.
The single family homes, are you going to sell those but keep the apartments?
Yes.
Okay.
We will likely sell most of the townhomes as well.
Okay.
We typically keep a few as rentals because gives us another option, for rental. But most of the townhomes will be sold. All of the single family homes will be sold.
Okay.
I have a question for Mike. On the townhome rentals, how does that affect it with the owner occupied on the city ordinance?
It would be fine as long as it still is a single family dwelling. There wouldn't be an issue. As it is now, there's single family dwellings in the city. They're rented, but they still operate as single family dwellings.
I thought we had an ordinance that says any future rentals built would have to be owner occupied.
No, you could still rent out your home. It's just if you have a single family dwelling and you want to have renters in it, then you need to live in it and get a conditional use permit. But if you just have a single family dwelling, you could rent out your single family dwelling to a family. You just can't have two families in there and rent it out.
Aren't these townhomes the ones that have like two houses on one building?
But each unit will be viewed as a single family dwelling, even if they were like row. If there was, say, 6 in a bank of homes, each unit would be viewed as a single family dwelling because it won't be connected.
Well, I guess I'm not understanding the ordinance then, because, I mean, one side, both sides are gonna be rented. I thought the ordinance was that on like a duplex or anything like that, that the rental had to be owner occupied.
Well, they're not duplex. Each townhome would be viewed as a single family dwelling at that point.
Okay.
They will be platted as an individual lot for that townhome, even though there'll be a bank of 4, typically we do. And each one will be platted as its individual home. And also, Bach has its own property management division within the company. We manage every single apartment out of Draper, and these would be the same, which is nice. It gives us control over our property and the upkeep and making sure that they're maintained and taken care of. And the townhomes would be under that same management group. And I mean, I don't want to go too far into this, and I hope you don't hold me to this, but if we were to build maybe 120 townhomes, 20 would be held as rentals, 100 would be sold. That's kind of the ratio. It'd be a very small amount of the townhomes that we would keep as rentals.
Okay. I mean, personally, I kind of like to stay away from the rentals just because it affects the schools, you know, because with the turnover of families and stuff, maybe in, you know, townhomes, it's not like that, but I know that like in apartments and stuff, when they have a turnover that they do in apartments, that it affects the schools because new kids are coming in and they're having to spend so much more time on the new kids
Yeah.
to get them caught up to the other kids, and it kind of slows everything down.
Oh, yeah, it's a
it
huge
does.
impact. And the townhomes, Blair, they each have their own individual tax ID number, so they're considered real property. So,
And so I'd be glad to talk to you too if you'd like. If you want to call me or whatever and talk about it further, I'd be glad to talk to you more, help you however I can.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Okay, so your property that you have, the bridge that's going across, is that the only access to that property, or are you gonna have another access?
There will be 2 accesses, and we always have 2 accesses for life safety and emergency vehicles anyway, but so there'll be one is the bridge and then another one is a road that we're extending into the property.
Okay, good, because I was really concerned about that traffic.
Yeah, obviously the road he's referencing is the one in front of City Hall. That one would continue south, and that's actually per the original agreement with Unity. If and when a development were to proceed and the bridge was built, that's something the city would then work with the developer in getting a road down to connect to it from this point.
How far down is that?
Well, I don't know the distance, but the city parcel is 40 acres, so I don't know how many feet or how far down that is, but it's obviously the length of our 40-acre parcel to connect to their site.
Is it just at the end of this road here?
Yeah. So right now it terminates, where it terminates to that dirt road that goes to the kind of that
Frisbee
woods
Park.
area, Frisbee Park area. Yeah, that road would somehow continue as much as we could in the same alignment. There are some kind of wetlands potential hits that we might have to mitigate or kind of squeeze around, but we try to stay in the same alignment heading south and continue on the far kind of the along the tracks is the way that we've kind of identified the best route as much as possible to then link up to whatever their road proposal is on their site.
Is it fair to say that on that map behind you, it's that pink area?
Yes, it's that is Bach, the pink area is where the Bach Holmes project area would be.
Okay,
That's correct. That is all indicative of mixed use zone.
all right.
That's the land use master plan, but the area in dark green, that's the mixed use zone,
Okay.
that whole area.
Mike, with this agreement, as things move forward, the bridge is built and things like that, will they be coming back for a variance as far as the apartments are concerned, and that makes or does this make it so that the apartments are approved?
That's what this does. This basically lays on top of, and this becomes basically, this is saying mixed use ordinance with these additional clauses on top. So it's almost like you put transparency on top,
Right.
And whatever's in this agreement that is additional to the existing code now becomes part of the code solely for
That
their
piece of
project
property.
area that they identify in their legal description and any exhibits attached to the agreement.
Still has to come to us for approval.
So yeah, but it doesn't have to come back to us for approval.
It does.
The development agreement so what we're talking about tonight is setting the public hearing to come back, obviously,
Right.
to then consider the development agreement amendment. If that were then to go to city council approves it, now all future projects will come in, but they'll be under both the mixed use zone and the approved development agreement that's been amended and approved.
So do you guys have any design or anything yet? Or are you just in the process of doing it?
Yeah,
now?
we do. We have kind of typical plans that we've used around like American Fork. We're constructing some apartments right now. We're doing some in Boise and Montana. And so we have a design that we change a little for each area, but it's pretty conceptual right now. Until we work through some of these details, it's hard for us to put too much money into the design until we even know
Right.
it's an option to have
Because tonight's
apartments.
just to set a public hearing, correct?
Right.
I mean, this isn't,
Yeah, the discussion was meant to be more discussion light. And when we want to really have discussion
Right.
heavy,
This is
if we
just-
set the public hearing, that can
just
be
to
more
set a
discussion
public
heavy.
hearing.
So, I mean, in all fairness to the planning commissioners, you have the right to ask questions that you want. We just have to remember that we're going to come back and have a real boots on the ground type of discussion if and when
Right.
we set a public hearing and following the public hearing. So,
And we can provide more. I have a lot more information as far as concept drawings and things like that when
but
we get to that point.
we hesitate to bring that stuff in at this point because we don't want the tail to wag the dog and have a conceptual product and then have it emblazoned in your mind as what it's going to be, when really we're talking about high level, what are we okay with following as kind of the rules for a project area, and that's what the development agreement
Well, and any conceptual drawing at this
is.
point
Just
may
that,
not.
and that's the reason that we really caution both the planning commission and the developer to kind of go that route at this point until we have something everybody can agree to work under, and then those kind of things can start to happen.
So we do a little bit of one to run a pro forma to decide, how can we make money? Can we make money on this? Is it a profitable project? But then we kind of stop there. Colors and
right,
things beyond that matter, we don't go too far with yet.
until you have the approval and all the,
Right.
right.
Yep.
Okay,
I just have one question. It says here 15 years. You want to extend. Do you really think it's going to take us 15 years to build all these? Do we really need that in that 15 years?
I'd probably make a lot more money if I could build faster, honestly. For my boss, it'd probably pay me more. But it's so we're easily at 10 years. I mean, you consider the infrastructure that it takes to do this, building a bridge, all of the water, sewer, everything that it takes to be ready to do this, and then you also getting lending on an apartment is a challenge. And so unless you're leased up to a certain rate, which is usually over 70%, good luck getting enough money to do anything else. And so there's that process, that portion of the process that is really unpredictable. Sometimes, we can lease up in 2 years. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's less, but that's unpredictable. And so the goal of the being able to go 15 and then add 10 is more, we're in a pretty good market right now, but it's somewhat unstable, I feel like, I don't know exactly what's going to be happening 3 years from now. And so it gives us the ability to build and work within this development agreement without having to come back and say request 5 more years or something. So the goal is not for us to drag our feet. I can promise you that. It's just I'm doing another one in Tooele right now because we thought 10 years, heck yeah, we'll be all built out in 10 years. I'm not worried about it. We're halfway through the subdivision. We started 10 years ago. So now I'm having to go back to them. I'm amending a development agreement, trying to address old things from 10 years ago that we all thought was a great idea as a city and developer. And we should have just had a clause that allowed us to extend the development agreement. So that's where that came from.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion. We set a public hearing. What are the dates, Mike?
25th. 25th, 2 weeks.
25th?
So you could set it for the 25th if you'd like. That's the next plan.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion. We set a public hearing for January 25th, 2022.
I second it. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Just a real quick point of clarification. Set a public hearing to
Yes.
consider the development agreement amendment, correct?
Correct, yes.
With Bach Holmes Land and Development. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You can just pull this.
Will you pull the commission, please?
Commissioner Nye,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Spires,
Aye.
Commissioner DeMar,
Aye.
Commissioner Herman,
Aye.
Commissioner Wingfield,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Okay. We'll see you on the 25th.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks for your
you.
time. Thanks.
Appreciate your input. Okay. Item number 3, consideration to forward a recommendation to the City Council of a proposed subdivision amendment for Riverdale City Center 6 subdivision property located approximately 4171 South and 4173 South Riverdale Road, Riverdale, Utah 84405, as requested by Riverdale Center North LLC and AWA Engineering Group.
Thank you for relaying that mouthful of information. I know it's a lot to say. And also, I want to show Mr. Tate appreciation for being patient with us. So thank you for that. I know it can be a little daunting to be at the end of the stack, so I appreciate that. But this is the second amended small subdivision plat of an original subdivision plat at Riverdale Center 6 subdivision, wherein Cheddar sits where it's been approved to sit, next to Dutch Bros. And as you may remember, we amended it to 2 lots, and now we're taking that second lot of the amended subdivision and we're now splitting it back into 3 lots. So I know it sounds kind of crazy, but there is some method to the madness, as I explained in the work session, with some property swap that's going on with Lowe's. So that's the purpose for that. And obviously, so the public's aware, that's the purpose for that. Lowe's has some interest. There's some property on the north that Riverdale Center 6 is, or Riverdale Center LLC is looking at and working with AWA. And so there's kind of a swap opportunity going on here that's then promoting this split for the subdivision of 4171 and 4173 at this location. That being said, this is there is an opportunity tonight with this, because it is a subdivision amendment and a small subdivision at that. The Planning Commission could make a recommendation to City Council on the submittal. So let me go over some of the details associated with it so you can kind of understand a little bit more. The area that's the western property that's being subdivided back off of the Cheddar's property would still continue to remain as open parking lot, vacant area. And obviously Cheddar's would be on the main site. The general plan use for the area is planned commercial high, and the subdivision clearly meets that requirement. In my review, I don't know that I don't have any comments of note. Mr. Douglas says he has no comments on this item. Thanks. No comments were provided by the police, but I take that as mean there's no issues. Fire department said they don't have any further comments on it. And then our city engineer said, I have reviewed the updated amended plat dated January 2022 for Riverdale Center 6 subdivision that creates 2 lots. The year under the acknowledgement should be changed to 2022. So somewhere in the acknowledgement, it looks like, oh, yep, I see it. It says 2021, so that needs to be updated. That's his only comment. He then says, I herewith recommend engineering approval for the amended plat. So that's a good thing, too. You'll see the application thereafter in the payment, and then the actual subdivision documents at the end of your packet. So with that, I would defer to the Planning Commission if you have any questions for me or for Mr. Tate as part of this. Thank you so much.
Any comments? Questions? A motion?
I'll make a motion. Make a motion, we forward to the city council with favorable recommendation on the rezone request for, well, the proposed subdivision amendment for the Riverdale Center 6 subdivision, property located at 4171 and 4173 South Riverdale Road, requested by Riverdale Center North LLC and AWA Engineering Group.
Second.
Should we poll it? Will you poll the commission, please?
Commissioner Spires?
Aye.
I,
Herman?
Aye.
Commissioner Wingfield?
Aye.
Commissioner Jones?
Aye.
Commissioner Nye?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments?
If the planning commissioners don't have one thing I needed to share as a save round, do you have any comments for me?
Do we want to keep you two going?
Huh?
Keep the,
Yeah, it's fine. Just wanted to let the commissioners know, I forgot to note this in the work session, so this is just as good a place as any. You will have planning commission leadership elections in the month of February. I have to have those done by the end of February. So, and bring those recommendations to, well, not really recommendations. The council, by tradition, consents to those. I doubt that they'll deny or comment on those, but I technically by code have to bring those to the council for their their recognition and consent of those appointments as you vote for them. So that being said, anticipate that probably, depending on what happens with the composition of the planning commission, because obviously every year we have a rotation with an expiring in January. So
so I expire this month.
no, as far as actually a planning commission seat is on rotation. So we need to get that figured out from the mayor. Once that's figured out, then the leadership gets reevaluated in February. So hopefully we have the commissioner composition figured out, and then we can do the elections in February by your bylaws.
Which seats expire this year?
It's Commissioner DeMar's seat at the moment. But the mayor at his obviously decision making can opt to move forward with his decisions. So and with that, I just want to let you know that's something to think about come February. There'll be chair vice chair elections.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm trying to get
And then
at.
in March, the vice chair and chair switches.
Well, meaning you'll have elections in February, and once those elections are done, and if they've been ratified by the council, then they'll be effective. The new leadership will be effective following that consent approval from the council. So that happens this February. So that is one thing I forgot to note earlier. So that's it.
Okay, I have a report from Norma Cyril.
Oh, yeah.
I talked to them today. It's the third time around for this virus or this infection.
C. diff.
Each time they've given him different kind of antibiotics, and it just keeps coming back. He has an appointment on the 17th to go see a doctor to see why it keeps coming back, why he has to have different antibiotics. But he's doing well. He's at home. He's sorry he couldn't come to the thing this morning. He is not contagious as far as they're concerned. So if you want to go visit, you can go visit, but he is home.
Thanks for sharing that, Commissioner, and I appreciate it.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Claire? You lost weight.
Have I lost weight?
Yeah.
No.
Yes, you have.
Yes, he has. He's really skinny.
I know.
Blair, you're a fat.
Mike?